Signan, Director of Marketing and Program Development for the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library. Thank you. Welcome to the final review in our spring Book Sandwiched In series. First, a bit of housekeeping. Please silence your cell phones at this time. Our thanks go to those who help fund programs like these through FFRPL, the dedicated FFRPL committee members who curate and organize these events, our guest speakers who so graciously share their time and talents with us, the library staff who help with our setup and production, and the thousands of people who attend each year. We are live streaming the formal portion of today's program to the library's YouTube channel at Rochester Public Library, New York. If you need to access the induction loop service in the auditorium, please adjust your hearing aid to the T switch. A bit of background: the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library, or FFRPL, expands the Rochester Public Library's community impact through fundraising, marketing, and programming. We also manage restricted funds to provide supplemental material support to 62 eligible libraries in Monroe, Ontario, Wayne, Livingston, Orleans, and Genesee counties. One way we raise funds is from book sales on site and online. You can shop our retail store or browse our online inventory of thousands of quality used books at AbeBooks, Alibris, and Biblio. You search for RPL Library Store at those sites. In addition to presenting legacy programs like today's Book Sandwiched In review, FFRPL supports select library programs and projects, such as Central's free educational workshop on library advocacy next Wednesday, May 14th from 5:30 to 7 in this auditorium. Learn how libraries are funded, the most effective way to talk with policymakers, mobilize your community to advocate for libraries, and connect with FFRPL and library staff. Please join us. FFRPL also supports library exhibits. As noted in the May edition of News from United for Libraries, issued by the American Library Association, FFRPL is the founding sponsor of Central's signature Art of the Book and Paper exhibit, which now includes work from around the world. The registration deadline for the 2025 show is May 16th. Visit ffrpl.org for details and the link to the entry form. FFRPL helps to create specialized spaces, such as the new mobile library RPL Go, which is now operating as part of the Lyle branch's hybrid services. RPL Go supports the library's mission to engage the community in lifelong learning through equal access to information, technology, and expert staff. And finally, FFRPL purchases supplemental materials for the library. For the last 6 years, we have purchased New York State Empire Passes for every MCLS library, central, branches, and towns. Empire Passes provide free access at New York State parks and the State Department of Environmental Conservation, including forests, beaches, and trails. And the passes are available for checkout with your library card. Today, Pamela Reed Sanchez will review The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan. In the foreword to the book, David Allen Sibley writes, quote, "The drawings and essays in this book do a lot more than just describe the birds. They carry a sense of discovery through observation and drawing, suggest the layers of patterns in the natural world, and emphasize a deep personal connection between the watcher and the watched. The birds that inhabit Amy Tan's backyard seem a lot like the characters in her novels." Our presenter, Pamela Reed Sanchez, is president and CEO of the Seneca Park Zoo Society. Her job is to have people from all walks of life fall in love with the living world. In her off time, she watches birds, photographs birds, and paints birds. Please welcome Pamela Reed Sanchez to our podium.
Hello. It is good to be back. Thank you for inviting me to be again a part of Book Sandwiched In. When I was here 2 years ago, I was fresh out of foot surgery, and I had the task of reviewing An Immense World by Ed Yong. a book that really changed the way I think about how animals perceive the world and how they have senses that we human beings do not. This time, I'm here to talk about The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan, which has been described by many as a charming and worthwhile read, but also a bit repetitive and light. Before I share my own opinion of the book, let's talk a little bit about the author. So who is Amy Tan? Most of us know her as an author of books centered on the personal stories of immigrant families. And if we've read just one of her books, it's likely to be The Joy Luck Club, which was a finalist for both the National Book Award and the National Book Critics Circles Award, and was made into a major motion picture that we all loved, right? She's also authored other books, short stories, children's books, memoir, and of course the book that we're here to talk about today, The Backyard Bird Chronicles. Amy is a first-generation Chinese American, the second of 3 children born to John and Daisy Tan. Her father was an electrical engineer and a Baptist pastor who escaped the Chinese Civil War. He died when Amy was just 15 years old, and so did her brother Peter, both of brain tumors within just a few months of each other. Her mother then moved them to Switzerland, she and her younger brother, also named John, where they endured a difficult and sometimes dangerous relationship with their mother. She became very self-sufficient very early. She received bachelor's and master's degrees in English and linguistics from San Jose State University. She also took doctoral classes at UC Santa Cruz and UC Berkeley. When studying at Berkeley, her roommate was murdered, and she was the one that had to identify the body. This is a woman who has experienced significant trauma in her life, in addition to developing chronic Lyme disease with complications of epileptic seizures. She is open about using antidepressants, and she chose to remain childless because she feared passing on a genetic legacy of mental instability. Those are her words. She and her husband, Lou Desmatais, have been married since 1974. Most of this I did not know when I met Amy Tan around 15 years ago when she visited the George Eastman House, where I then worked. We hosted her for an intimate lunch with her friend, the artist Wendell Castle, his wife Nancy Jewers, and a number of others, well, a few others. To this day, I'm not sure why I was included in that intimate lunch among decades-long friends who spoke a language of creativity that was on another level. I suspect she wondered too why I was there. She never addressed me in any way. We had been told that she was shy and reserved, and I found her to be aloof. Knowing now her history of trauma and depression, I believe I mistook her shyness as snobbery, and I may have formed an attitude toward her that she did not deserve. A few months back, in December, I had the opportunity to attend a webinar that was a conversation between Amy Tan and my dear friend, J. Drew Lanham, renowned ornithologist, nature writer, and MacArthur genius, who warned me he'd be watching the live stream. So, hi, Drew, if you're on there. This was in part a fundraiser for the Wild Wonder Foundation, which is led by John Muir Laws, the master nature journalist that Tan references often in her book. Laws, too, was present in the conversation, which really focused on the joy of discovery of birds rather than on the book itself. And I remember my head being turned a bit when she mentioned that only 20% of hatchlings make it to adulthood, that the adult birds that you see at your bird feeder, for every one you see, 4 didn't make it to adulthood. That's a statistic that most of us don't know or think about much. And I knew from that she really did know a bit about birds. But mostly what I took from that conversation is that Amy Tan, as birder and illustrator, is a work in progress, and she knows it. She is still learning, and she recognizes how much she has yet to learn. And we see that in her book. We see a progression in her illustrations, which are really quite impressive. Even when she's making a simple drawing to help her understand what she's witnessing. And it's important to note that nature journaling isn't about making beautiful drawings. It's about observation. What do I see? What's the size? What's the shape? How quickly do I get this down and write what I see so that I can remember it later and learn from it? So what she calls her cartoons help her make sense of bird behavior, such as here she's describing, you see the novelist here coming to and writing the story, whether it's with the scrub jays and crows and the owl, or the scrub jay tails, as she says, the fledglings. Is she right? I don't know. We don't know. She's making sense of her world. We also see her coming to understand her own relationship to birds as she learns how to make the right nectar for hummingbirds, or take down the feeders when disease can be spread, or how to better bird-proof the windows of her home. We also learn that she has a $250 a month mealworm habit. Or maybe her birds do. It may be sacrilege to say that my favorite part of this book is her preface. It's a very honest overview of her late-in-life introduction to birds, though she has always loved nature. Her inability to drive has her primarily meeting birds in her backyard on a daily basis. And she's privileged to live in a place that, by her own species count, is home to more than 60 species each year, as the seasons are marked by migrations, fledglings, moltings. This book is one person's immersion into the world of birds, using nature journaling as her tool. It is one woman regaining a connection to nature in a way that is open to most of us. This is Amy's drawing of juncos in her yard, and it's one that I really love because of what she writes. She says, "What I saw. Sometimes I get caught up in creating the pretty picture, and I take my subject out of context. This is what it's really like looking for birds." And here's my own junco in the backyard. Not quite so easy to see, so I photograph it, she draws it. All right. This book really has some lovely insights, such as every part of a bird and every behavior has a specific purpose, a reason, and individual meaning. Instinct does not account for everything that is fascinating. I'm going to repeat that last sentence. Instinct does not account for everything that is fascinating. So in other words, she's learning that instinct drives a lot, but these birds are intentional beyond their instinct. And while she spends considerable time discussing her relationship with hummingbirds, I really love when she talks about the more common birds. On page 84, when discussing how she's still a newbie, often wrong, often puzzled, she says, "I know too little to know what's ordinary. But I have heard experienced birders call the lesser goldfinch a trash bird because it's so common and numerous. I heard others call a house sparrow a junk bird, an invasive, like a European starling. I understand the antipathy. Invasive birds usurp habitat and resources, but I can't help but feel discomfort. The rhetoric is often the same as the racist ones I hear about Chinese people." I appreciate, too, that Tan delves into the world of the mammals sharing her yard and her attempts to thwart their feeding at her feeders or on her beloved birds. She doesn't ignore the squirrels, the rats, or feral cats. And she accepts the circle of life in the bird world represented by bird predators, primarily hawks, though the hawks are a major reason why 80% of hatchlings don't survive to adulthood. And she says, "My yard is where the hawks and songbirds meet, one as diner, the other as dinner. I try to not root for one over the other." It resonates for me when she talks about birding snobbery, as I think anyone who is new to birding has experienced it. She talks about posting a question in an online forum, not using her real name, and she was told it was too basic a question on that forum. Instead of inviting her further in and taking an opportunity to embrace this fledgling birder, she was shamed. I think what this book does really well is remind us of the importance of being still and noticing. Yes, be curious. Let nature fill in all around you. Be still with it. For Tan, this led to drawing and making sense of the world of birds through journaling what she saw, and then taking those illustrations to create fine drawings, such as this hummingbird, which requires really seeing every aspect of the bird, every feather, the exact tilt of the head, the glint in the eye, the grip of the talon on twig. This is really impressive. In some ways, Amy Tan's immersion into birding resembles my own. My father loved birds, and I didn't get it. We would get home from 2 weeks at the Cape Cod on a summer vacation, and his rolls of film would have scores of images of gulls on the shore. They all looked alike to me, and I did not understand his fascination. And it really wasn't until about 9 years ago that I began inviting birds into my own yard and seeking them with a camera when I hiked. When COVID hit, we all found ourselves spending more time in our own backyards, and I began noticing more and taking more pictures. So here's a few from my own backyard. American robin, getting the early bird. Northern cardinal, which we all love, sitting on my shepherd's hook. Here's a trash bird, a lesser goldfinch. Who decided, by the way, that it was lesser? I think it's glorious. But I'm going to show you 3 pictures of goldfinch, and what the camera allows me to do is notice the difference among them in terms of coloring, molting, feather color changing. So look at this bird and look specifically at his head between the eyes, and now we look at this one. And we see there's more black in there. Is this a juvenile male changing his feathers to become eventually this one? I took this one earlier in the week, and you can see the trash that is my backyard. But I love that there's little sparrows watching the finch at the feeder that they can't get to. And then, speaking of finch, a house finch with that incredible, incredible, vibrant cranberry red head and back too, which is often unseen. The still image allows me to see what my bare eyes cannot. I don't have great eyesight, but more importantly, I don't have good observational skills. So these images allow me to examine the bird at my own pace, noticing the delicate coloration of each feather, things that I don't see and it's hard to notice when they're flying by. Up next, female house finch. A quick glance in my backyard might have said this was a sparrow. It takes slowing down to really closely look at the coloration and the beak shape. Next up, common house sparrow. Often maligned, they are voracious eaters. They will nest anywhere, including in your roof, but they are lovely birds, as are their relatives who, when you slow down and start looking, you'll start seeing there are more than house sparrows in your backyard. There might be white-crowned sparrows. There might be white-throated sparrows. And someday someone's going to tell me why this one is white-crowned and this one isn't yellow-crowned. That's okay. Earlier this week, I took this picture, blew it up. This is from my phone camera and not from my good lens, but and it's blown up. So the resolution isn't good, but I wasn't sure what I was seeing. I thought, oh, is it a white crown up on the feeder? That's unusual. They're usually on the ground, but it's got the colorations by the eye. And then as I looked at it more, I saw this yellow underbelly, and I showed a friend at work who is a true bird nerd, really an expert birder, and she said, what you've got there is a female rose-breasted grosbeak. So I can't wait to see if the male comes around. Male oriole, yes, it is time to put out our oranges and jelly. Last year, I was lucky enough to have a nesting pair. I had never seen a female Baltimore oriole before. They're really quite beautiful. So, taking photos, and then I began painting, not drawing. I do not have the patience to put in the hundreds of pencil miles that's necessary to be really good at drawing birds. But acrylics are super forgiving, but not so forgiving that I'm not going to go through these very quickly. So here's a pair of shoes that I painted for a friend. I like to repurpose wood in boxes and furniture, so here's a fox sparrow and a white-throated sparrow. This is a small stool that I am repurposing with sandhill cranes, not from my own backyard, clearly. This is far from complete, but I think I'm really gonna love it. And I also began writing a lot of poetry. This particular image inspired a poem entitled, "My Neighbor's Cat is a Jerk." When I hike, I saunter, and I carry my big lens that allows me a closer look at what I've seen once I'm back home. Because I carry that big camera, fellow hikers often assume that I'm an expert birder, which I'm not. And they ask me what I've seen, and quite often they say, "See anything good out there?" I hear this so often that I wrote this poem, and I thank you for indulging me by listening to it. It's entitled, "Upon Encountering Another Human on a Trail While Carrying My Big Lens." Did you get anything good? I got to breathe deeply without trying. I got to experience a surround sound orchestra of birds and frogs, needing neither composer nor conductor, save the energy that binds us all together. I got to notice how trees and bushes and brambles allow nature to shape them for its purposes, not ours. I got to wonder how the unseen cardinal in a distant treetop could produce a sound so loud it pierced my grateful ears, and realize I had no need for the scientific answer. I got to sunbathe alongside a turtle that managed not to notice me. I got to consider how the song sparrow knows before it lands which reed will hold it. I got to ponder what mammal left the berry-filled scat too big for raccoon, too small for black bear. I got to think about the girl that I was and the woman that I am, and how many variations on a theme have brought me here. I got to watch a great blue heron fly its prehistoric body right over my head with appropriate grace and arrogance. I got to feel a mosquito bite me in the center of the worry line in my rarely unfurled forehead. I got to listen to phoebes and peewees and dream up names for birds not currently called by their calls. I got to examine the word enough with its porous and ever-changing subjective measurements. But none of that is what you meant, and none of that is what I will give you. Instead, I nod and say, "It's all good, isn't it?" So, thank you. That's very kind of you. You know, I think whether it's drawing or painting or photographing or writing as I do, being still and taking in, what are you hearing, what are you seeing, how does it make you feel? All of that just improves our connection with nature and makes us fall in love with it deeper and want to act on its behalf. And that's really what the writing and the painting does for me. A few references to other resources, and Amy Tan does a good job at mentioning many of these in her book. She's got a good list in the back of books that helped her learn. But here's my recommendations. If you want to know more about nature journaling, John Muir's law book is the Bible. It is wonderful. I have my own copy up here. You're welcome to come and look at it. But there are others as well. I also highly recommend Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They have a wonderful nature journaling course. You could do it at your own pace. I forget how many are in the series, but it's really, really wonderful. Highly recommend. If you're an experiential learner like I am, taking that nature journaling course was wonderful, and that's up on their site. If you're interested in bird behavior, she talks about Jennifer Ackerman, who is sort of the goddess of birds right now. Up here you see The Genius of Birds. There are other books. The Bird Way is also hers. This other one that I have on here, The Thing with Feathers, I have my copy here as well. You're welcome to glance through that. Kind of a strange maybe offering here, Alfie and Me by Carl Safina. Safina is a brilliant nature writer. If you have not read his books, I highly recommend them. This is a very personal book about he and his wife taking in an owl that they rescued after a hurricane and their year with Alfie. It's a lovely, lovely book. If you want to know more about inviting backyard birds into your backyard or discovering what's in there, there are a number of great guides. This Backyard Bird Lover's Guide, Suburbia, which I have a copy of here, Guide to Urban Wildlife. Bird identification. Get a field guide. Try many to see what works for you. Find them at thrift stores so that you can mark them up and crack the spine, because the library does not like it when you do that to their books. Spend a few dollars to find out which field guide feels right to you, because there's Sibley, there's Peterson, there's Nat Geo, there's lots of choices out there for you. All of them are organized a little differently, and you will find after you spend some time with them which one you're called to go to the most. But I also highly, highly recommend downloading the Merlin app if you have not already. You see this on the far left? Yeah. So not only is my vision not great, but I cannot discern most bird calls and bird song, but Merlin can tell me what's in my backyard and what's out on the trail that I cannot see and sometimes that I cannot even hear. So this on the far left is my Merlin recording from 2 mornings ago. I just put it up at my bedroom window, and I had trash bird, American goldfinch, northern cardinal, yellow warbler, white-throated sparrow, American robin, red-bellied woodpecker, northern house wren. That was a 2-minute recording. So highly recommend. What that helps me do is know what I'm looking for. If you are interested in books that are chronicling like a year in the life of nature, that are not written so much in this kind of short diary form, nature journaling form, but here's a few favorites. Walden. I know, we read it in high school, or we said we read it in high school. We tried. Go back, give it another chance. There's some really beautiful writing in it, some real gems. So give that a chance. Sand County Almanac, and I regret I did not bring my copy, but this is a lovely, incredible book that will kind of be transformational for you if you have not read Sand County Almanac by Alda Leopold. Really lovely book. And one of my personal favorites, Henry Beston's The Outermost House, which is about a year on the outermost house at Cape Cod. That house no longer exists. When I was a child, we sort of watched it disappear. Thank you, climate change. But really wonderful books about nature observation that connect us to the world in different ways. But back to Amy Tan. Is this book charming? At times, absolutely, and it sure feels good in your hands. I mean, this is just one of those books that you love to pick up and thumb through. Is this book the best book that you can read to begin to love the birds in your backyard? Nope. And I'm going to say something that may have me never be invited to speak here again. I don't think this book would have been published if the author were unknown. But if this book can charm Amy Tan's followers enough for them to want to emulate her love for birds, I am okay with this. Or if they think twice about whether their cat should be an outdoor cat, I am good with this. If this book invites people to experience the joy that birds can bring us just by being themselves, then this is a win. This is using celebrity for good, and we should celebrate it. And to close with her own words, I am still new to birding, and so every bird is a good bird to see, even the ones I see all the time. I hope I never cease to be amazed.